All right. Second, you brothers and sisters out there, give me 1 second. I'm gonna have to let me check. Let me check the live stream. Okay. Let's see. Oh boy. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Okay. So the audio sounds good. Shalom, shalom to you all, to you brothers and sisters out there. I would like to start this lesson off by giving all praises, honors, and glories due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops, great millstone, who rule and teach well. And peace, blessings, and salutations out there to you sincere brothers and sisters out there, wherever you may be, all right, across the four corners of the earth. You know, to the laborers, the fellow prophets, the men, the teachers out there that are making the bodies a living sacrifice. Shalom to you, and to the, you sincere believers out there. All right, to you all I say shalom. May the blessing of election be upon you and your household. Now, the first time I tried to do this lesson, it failed. I had audio issues, but it is what it is. I'm probably gonna leave that video up and deal with it tomorrow. But I pretty much had to restart my computer because my headset was it was bringing out some bugged out sound output, and I was like, what is this? So I checked the device drivers in my computer. I realized that everything was fine, everything was up to date, and I decided, you know what? Let me just restart my computer because this thing has been on for, I wouldn't say all day, for the last 4 days, but my headset has been left connected inside the ports, so that might have have done something to the pins on the audio headset. Maybe it wasn't receiving the signal, so I had to remove it, restart the computer, so all the ports within the computer can be restarted. All right, the connectors can be restarted for it to work, and it worked. Kolo Yahabashmi Shai. I thought I had to go ahead and get a new headset and send this in for a repair. But anyways, lately, Elder Apostle Har, beloved Elder Apostle Har, right? He did a video, Elders in Transit. Okay, he did this video right here, was really really good, and he got a screenshot of this image, which was from this book, The Roman Empire, the Empire of the Edomite. Okay, it's a very good book, and also he went into the history of Russia. Now I'm gonna cover both of these topics. I'll see where the Spirit takes me afterwards. I don't really have any scriptures in line. I mean, I could go ahead and get Revelation, the 20th chapter, Job, the 30th chapter. These are staple scriptures that goes into the history. Scripture says in Job, I think it's Job the 8th chapter, inquire thee of thy search of thy fathers. Okay, acquire that search. These things like that. So you have to. It's very important for you to go and look at our history. The history of Israel, how they were ruling, how they were conducting themselves, which it wasn't in a good manner because we didn't have the law, statutes, commandments written within us at this time period. Most of us, if not all of us, majority of us have lost the way. Okay, and we took on the customs of the other nations, took on different names, nationalities, called ourselves Russian, called ourselves German, which all these nations were started by Jake, by the way. Russia, Germany, Switzerland, Poland, Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, right? That's what they call it, Czech Republic, and then Slovakia before they split up. Francia, okay, Franks, Charlemagne the Great of Francia, the Frankish Empire. Okay, to give you a hint, Hispania, Iberia, Spain, Portugal. You get the point, right? England, Scotland, right? The Scots, Irish. All of these countries were started by Jake. And once you go into the history, you truly see how great of a people we were without the law, statutes, commandments. How much greater will we be with these law, statutes, commandments written within us? We're truly a nation of kings and priests, as the scripture says, a nation of kings and priests. We are truly a great people. Okay, so I don't know where I'm going to start. Let's go ahead and get the Roman Empire and the Empire of the Edomite. I'm not going to read the whole book. I just get some excerpts from here, and then go ahead and get the scriptures. It says here, Roman Empire, the Emperor of the Edomite. It says, unspeakable then must our, this is page 13, our astonishment be when we perceive that this grand secret was certainly discovered and disclosed more than 1200 years ago, that the true answer to the question, whence came the Romans, right? And they're talking about the Edomite Romans that ruled in Rome. Okay, they took down, or they started what is known as the Roman Republic. Okay, let's go ahead and look that up. Roman Republic. Okay, it says here the Roman Republic was the era of classical, okay, Roman civilization. Anytime you hear the term classical, that's a notion for Edomite rulership. Just like how in ancient Greece they called the time of Alexander what? Classical Greece. Because that's when Alexander came in and his four generals, and they really pushed Hellenization. Okay, so the Roman Republic was started by Edom. Okay, right? Now they say that it starts from 509 BC. Honestly, after the overthrow of the Roman kingdom, I believe that Japhet was still there during 500 BC. Okay, because what was going on was that you were having Japhetic women who were marrying Edomite men, and you were having Edomite women marrying Japhetic men. Okay, so they started mingling with the Romans, and that's why some people say like the early Romans around this Roman Republic time were a little bit darker. Is because they had that Japhetic skin tone. Okay, even though most of them were Edomites. Okay, may have been returned and even registered in writing before the birth of Yahushua, that the response proceeded neither from Greek nor Roman, but from the despised Jew, that it has been preserved to us in the Jewish Targums, that it exists amidst the fables and impieties, the absurdities and the blasphemies of the Jewish Talmud, that it may be comprehended in these words: the Romans came from Esau, who is Edom, and Italy is the Idumea, Rome the Brazra of the Hebrew, what does that say? Of the Hebrew prophets. Okay, so what scripture comes to mind? Okay, okay, let's also get that. Let's get violent. Okay, Matthew 11. It says here, Matthew 11 verse 12, and from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffered violence, and the violence taken by force. And the reason why I brought this scripture out is because Edom, another way to identify Edom is the violent man, the man of sin, right? The man of perdition, who the Lord shall destroy with the spirit of his mouth and the brightness of his coming. That's who Edom is in the scripture. He's that man of sin, that devil that old serpent going all the way back to the garden. This is Psalms 140 verse 4. It says, "Keep me, O Yahweh, from the hands of the wicked." Bashem Yahushai, from the hands of the wicked. Preserve me from the violent man, okay, who has purpose to overthrow my goings. And we need this now more than ever, especially going into the times of tribulations. The violent man will persecute the saints, pursuant to 2nd Esdras, the 16th chapter. They shall destroy and spoil those that fear the Lord. Okay, so he's going to be coming after us, right? And you can read on. It talks about, this is a really good chapter, one of my favorite chapters, Psalms 140. I think it's Ahariam in the Hebrew, Ahariam, right? Beautiful. I love the Psalms. Let's get back into it. So this page 13, the descendants of Esau, say the Jewish rabbis, the sworn enemies of the descendants of Jacob, even to the end of the world, were at first a small nation, inhabiting Mount Seir and the adjacent country, contiguous to the land of Canaan. So this is evidence, okay, that Edom was actually a people. Even if you say you didn't believe in the Bible, right? Edom was actually a people that ruled, or I wouldn't say ruled, but that existed and still exists today. The scripture says there is no end to all the people, even those that have came after Adam, right? I think that's in 2nd Esdras. It's been a while since I went to that scripture, but it's somewhere in 2nd Esdras. If somebody finds it, they can post in the comment board. I'll go ahead and give it a thumbs up. This is page 13, no, page 14. It says, "So long." Let's see, let's start at let's start at this page right here. "So long as the Israelites enjoyed a great formidable empire in Canaan, but after the Republic, the 12 tribes had been destroyed by the Assyrians and Babylonians," right? "They wonderfully increased in numbers and in strength," right? So this is telling you that after, right, the conquest of the northern and the southern kingdom, which the southern kingdom returned back to Israel after the Babylonian captivity, Edom was, what's that scripture? Oh my goodness, what's that scripture? It's in 2nd Esdras, okay? Second Esdras, right? Okay, here it is. Okay, here it is. 1st Esdras 4 verse 45, right? It says here, "Thou hast vowed to build up the temple which the Edomites burned when Judea was made desolate by the Chaldees." Now the Chaldees are the Babylonians. Okay, that's another name for Babylon, is Chaldee. That's why the scriptures refer to as Babylon, the virgin daughter of Babylon, the Chaldean daughter. Okay, I think that's in Jeremiah. What is it? Jeremiah, the 51st chapter, or the 50th chapter, somewhere around there, right? In fact, let me go on and get that. Okay, Isaiah the 47th chapter. Excuse me, right? Old daughter of the Chaldeans, Isaiah the 47th chapter. Isaiah and the book of Isaiah, the book of Jeremiah, I always confused. I don't know why. Anyways, let's continue. So it says here, and in strength extended their dominion in the west, subjugated Italy, and founded Rome and the Roman Empire. And that started in the Roman Republic, because remember, they overthrew the monarchy of Rome, which was ruled by Japheth. Okay, and the Roman Empire in at length entirely overturned the Jewish state, the second temple being destroyed by Titus Vespasian, and professing the religion of Jesus Christ, which they were the first of all nations to embrace. They hold Jacob in captivity till Messiah, son of David, shall appear. That's what it means, Messiah ben David. It's supposed to be Haushai, son of David, right? Son of David. Looks like that's it. It says the rabbis further assert that the prophecy of the prophets against Esau, Edom, and the cities of Edom have as yet received but a partial accomplishment, and that they will obtain their fulfillment in the punishment and destruction of Rome Christian. They designate the eternal city impious Rome. They denominate their empire the impious kingdom, or kingdom of impiety, which impiety means unholy, right? And they believe that the son of David will not come until this impious kingdom shall have been extended over the whole world. What's that scripture? Job 9 and verse 24, right? The earth is given unto the hands of the wicked, okay? And once the wicked have taken control of the whole earth, that will what? Speed up the arrival of Yahushua, as the scripture says. For the elect's sake, these days shall be shortened, okay? For the elect's sake. So the Lord is going to hasten the days for us to get out of here, okay? Also, you can, talk about when it talks about the second temple. You can read about it in Matthew, right, 24th chapter, okay? Where you see Jerusalem desolate, flee into the mountains, okay, right? Woe to them that give suck in those days. That's 70 A.D. You can also read about it in Revelation 12th chapter. The woman fleeing into the wilderness, which is the interiors of Africa, okay? These are all scriptures that one should know, especially being a Hebrew Israelite and going into our history. Okay. And then here he just continues to talk about the scriptures, right? Going in about the scriptures and whatnot. So you can go ahead and read this book on your own time. I've read this book before, if I'm not mistaken. It was during the time that I was reading the 13th Tribe by Arthur Koestler. I read the whole book in no time. So, this is only, what is it, like 171 pages? Really 150. So it won't take long for you to read it. So, look at that. And in Italy and on Rome say the rabbins will the prophecies of the prophets against Esau, Edom. Which they go off because Edom, right? Edom, if you want to be technical, Edom is America. And some rabbis teach that Edom is America, but ultimately, wherever Edom dwells, okay, that is Edom, Basra, wherever they rule, okay? Let's see, it says here, the Latins, it says the sons of Esau might possess. Yeah, he also goes in about the Latins, which the Latins were Edomites. If you go into the history, the Latins were Edomites. So that's it on that. I'm going to go ahead and move on. Now, I want to go ahead and get into the history of Russia, okay? Which is going to be the main point of this lesson. I covered this book before, so that's why I'm not going too deep into it. Like I said, anytime you have the chance, you can go ahead and read, right, about that book. You can go and read it. A lot of good information, a lot of good information. But he pretty much just quotes the scriptures. Like, this guy just grabs scriptures from the Bible and posts them in there. So he's not really bringing out any new information, via outside of the scriptures, It says here the Kievan Rus, right? Which the Kievan Rus was pretty much the first kingdom over Russia, right? And the Kievan Rus formed what is known as the House of Rurik, or the Rurikids, okay? So it says Kievan Rus was a medieval political federation located in modern-day Belarus, Ukraine, and part of Russia. The Latin name for the Rus, a Scandinavian people, right? Because Rus actually means the men who row or rowers. All right, it was a name that was given to them because of them rowing on boats down the Volga rivers because they were Vikings. The name Kievan Rus is a modern day 19th century designation, but has the same meaning as the land of Rus, which is now which is how the region was known in the Middle Ages. The Rus ruled from the city of Kiev, right, which is in Kiev, Ukraine, also given as Kiev. It's Kiev, not Kiev. And so Kievan Rus simply meant the lands of the Rus of Kiev. The Rus are first mentioned in the Annals of St. Burton, which records their presence in a diplomatic mission from Constantinople because they were very close to the Byzantines, right? Them being both Israelites and the Byzantines being in their best interest because at that time, who would want to side with the Khazars who were causing trouble during that time in the Middle Ages? Okay. From Constantinople to the court of Louis the Pious, the annals claim that they were Swedes, and this is possible, but their ethnicity has never been firmly established. And that is true because if you look at the map, the Scandinavian map, okay, if you look at the Scandinavian map, the closest Scandinavian country is Sweden. Sweden. This is Sweden right here. This is Finland, but during that time, Sweden was a part of Finland. This is Sweden right here. Very close to Russia. So these Vikings from Sweden went all the way down here into the Baltic Sea. This is what they call the Baltic Sea. And took the rivers of Russia all the way down there to southern Russia. Okay. And came into that area known as Novgorod. Okay, Novgorod, or later, came to be Kiev after they moved the capital. But the first capital was in Novgorod. That's how you say it. The story of the arrival of the Rus in the east is first told in the Primary Chronicle, also known as A Tale of Bygone Years, 12th century Russia. This work relates how the people of the land invited the Rus, identified as Scandinavian Vikings, to rule and maintain order in their country in the mid-9th century. 3 brothers, including one named Rurik, accepted the invitation and founded the Rurik dynasty, which would last for over 700 years. Powerful, right? And that's not the only Israelite dynasty that ruled Russia. You had 2. Okay, you had the Rurikid dynasty, and then you had the Romanov dynasty, which was named after Roman, an Israelite in Russia. Okay, he was like a nobleman that was elected to be the new dynasty of Russia. The version of events is supported in the present day by historians who are labeled Normanists and those who accept a Norse origin for the Rurikid dynasty, and is challenged by so-called anti-Normanists who argue for Slavic or blah blah blah. I don't really care about that. Right? I don't really care about that. So they're talking about politics and whatnot because you have a lot of Slavic people, which Slav just means Slavs. Those people that are in Eastern Europe, they're trying to make the origins of their, so-called not really their history, but of the history of their country to fit them, when the people that have founded what is known as Russia, Ukraine, Belarus were all Vikings, okay, from Scandinavia. So that's what they're trying to do. It says here the state of Kiev and Rus fell to the Mongols in 1237 to 1242 AD. Now, I have my own opinions about the Mongols. I do not believe that they were Moabites, right? I do not believe that they were Moabites, and I don't believe that they were Jacob. I believe that these people were Japhites, okay? The same with those Turkish people, because they had different customs and cultures than the actual Moabites at that time. And although they did mingle and mix with the Moabites, right, their, their language and their customs were totally different, breaking the region in pieces, which eventually developed into the modern states of Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine. The Russian primary chronicle was probably completed by 1113 at Kiev. It was once contributed to the monk Nestor, right, 1056 to 1114, but it's now thought to be a compilation of earlier works, probably edited by Nestor. So this is the person who made the chronicles, right, and the early kings of that time, to give him that credit. Okay, let's jump down. It says the work begins by claiming that after the biblical great flood, the sons of Noah, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, right? Ham, Shem, and Japheth divided the world between them, and Japheth received the region of Kiev and Rus as part of his allotment, which he received the whole area of Europe. First, they started in Turkey, Asia Minor, right? This whole area, and they spread all throughout. You know, Javan went here, the Thracians went here, Tiras, okay, Tiras were in here. Magog went up into here, Eastern Europe. Magog are those ancient indigenous Russians, okay, right? Those ancient as Russians. They went all the way up here, okay, right? Gomer stayed in Turkey. Ashkenaz, the area of Germania, right? Javan over here, Kittim down there near Cyprus. That's where Japheth all went, you know, and they established settlements, and eventually they started fighting each other and selling each other in slavery. That's what was happening. What Japheth or Japheth did to establish order in his lands is not mentioned, okay? But the Chronicle relates that the people fought with each other and eventually were subjugated by the Khazars of Central Asia, Turkey, and the Varangian Vikings of Scandinavia. Now, these Khazars, we believe them to be Edomites. You can read about the 13th tribe by Arthur Koestler, right? It goes into that. The Slavs of the region were forced to pay tribute to the Khazars and the Varangians until they drove the Varangians out, but maintained a relationship with the Khazars. Afterwards, however, they found that they could not govern themselves, and the tribute paid to the Khazars was too great. Even though they had been tired of paying the Varangians, they recognized that life may have been better under their protection. Says here, right, this is what they said. They have that recorded, you know, in history. It says here, the Slavic ambassadors arrived at the unspecified land of the Rus and invited them to come and rule their land as kings. 3 noble brothers accepted the invitation, and the Chronicle continues. Okay, so it's a lot of good history, in here. I'm gonna jump around though, you know, for the sake of time. I know, I know Jake doesn't like these long historical videos. They're like getting straight to the point. So, oh boy, it says here in Novgorod. Oh, let me start here. 2 years after their arrival, 2 younger brothers died. Right, the 2 younger brothers died, and Rurik took their regions as his own, with his capital at Novgorod. 2 men of Rurik's group, Askold and Dir, asked him for permission to leave the land and seek their fortunes as Tsargrad, right, or Mikligard, Constantinople, and were given leave. On their way to Tsargrad, they stopped at a city on a hill called Kiev, conquered it, and then began raiding the surrounding area in true Viking fashion. The Chronicle credits them with a famous attack on Constantinople involving 200 Viking ships, which was driven off after much slaughter by a storm said to have been sent by the Most High in her historical date of this raid. Because the Most High, he, as the scriptures say, he ruleth in the kingdom of men. So the Byzantines had to be protected at that time to fulfill prophecy of the Ottoman Turks taking them down, right? It was prophesied that Esau will come out of his prison and to see the world again. In Novgorod, Rurik died of natural causes and entrusted his young son Igor to the care of his kinsman, his brother Oleg, also known as Oleg of Novgorod and Oleg the Prophet. Now I'm going to show you how Oleg looks like. Okay, there's only one picture of him, and this is how he looks like. Okay, you can clearly see that this is a Jake. Now in here they kind of whitewashed him a little bit, but if you look at the older pictures, right, this is 100% a Jake. This is 100% a Jake, right? Now they didn't get his hair down because it's like a fairly new uh, image painting, but this is how he looked. He was dark skinned and he had white hair, older gentleman. And this is his ram's horn, this shofar, and this is his sword. Okay, so let's continue on. Oleg, where were we? Oleg began a series of military campaigns from Novgorod, conquering and consolidating the surrounding lands. He came at last to Kiev and saw how Axkod and Dior were amazing enormous wealth through raids. He tricked them both into coming out of the city, killed them, and took control of the region, moving the capital from Novgorod to Kiev at this time. Through negotiations and military strength, he convinced a number of tribes and settlements to stop paying tribute to the Khazars, which were the Slavs at that time, and the Pechenegs and all these different tribes. By the time his reign ended, Oleg had vastly expanded the roots control of the region and filled Kiev's treasury. He was known as Oleg the Prophet, which translates as Oleg the Priest, due to a prophecy concerning his death. It was foretold that Oleg would be killed by a beautiful horse he owned, but which he never dared to ride because of the prophecy. He ordered the horse sent away, but provided that it would always be well fed and cared for. Once he had conquered the surrounding regions, he and made lucrative treaties, especially with Constantinople. He felt confident of his reign, scoffed at the prophecy, and asked his advisors what had ever happened to the horse that was supposed to kill him. He was told it had died, and Oleg asked to be brought to the horse's bones. Once there, he mocked the prophecy and stamped on the horse's skull, startling a serpent beneath, which bit him on the foot and killed him. The Mosai is not mocked, boy. The Mosai is not mocked. Now they say it was a prophecy because people prophesied that he was gonna die this way, but hey, the Mosai works on the left hand side too. We know that this person probably wasn't a man of the Lord that gave him this prophecy, but the Mosai, he controls all sides, the left hand and the right hand, the evil and the good. So the Mosai used a prophet on the left hand to give a real prophecy and say, you're gonna die this way, and he never believed it. He scoffed at it. you know He scoffed at this idea. So when the serpent came and bit him, his ass effed around and found out. Okay? It says here he was succeeded by Igor of Kiev, Rurik's son, who he had raised. Igor was married to a Varangian woman named Olga, Saint Olga of Kiev. And I'm going to show how she looks like a very beautiful Israelite sister. A sister! Not this whitewashed image of her, but you're going to see what I'm talking about. Saint Olga. Excuse me. Very beautiful woman. Okay. This is how she looked. Princess Olga, also known as Saint Olga, and she's also called Apostle Olga. Queen of Russia, or you could say princess, right? Look at her. This is an Israelite woman, by the way. Israelite woman. Very beautiful sister, as you can see. Okay. And she lived to be up in her 70s or 80s, and she dealt with the administrative tax of the Russian Empire, or let me say the Russian Kingdom at that time, because her husband Igor was pretty much a warrior. Okay, he was too busy fighting, and he was a pagan too. So, Olga, she was pretty much tasked with just handling the diplomacies and all that stuff, right? Which is something women are good at. They're good at making relationships and talking to people, because who can resist the voice of a beautiful woman? Right? It says here, he was succeeded by Igor of Kiev, Rurik's son, who he had raised. Igor was married to a Varangian woman named Olga. Sometime before he came to power, like his adopted father, Igor engaged in successful military campaigns and exacted tribute from the conquered. Now, this led to him being killed by the Drevilians, right? You can see right there. Uh, they put him on the tree and spread him open and let the trees bend so his body can be torn in half, which is a very cruel way to die. So after Igor's death, he had three sons, right? Three sons. Well, actually, no. After Igor, he had a son named Sviatoslav, right? Which Sviatoslav is known as Sviatoslav the Brave. Now, they say this is how he looks like, which, if he does look like this, right, I won't be surprised, because, you did have Jakes that looked like this during that time, believe it or not. It wasn't a common thing, but, it's very plausible. It's very possible, I would say. So this is Sviatoslav the Brave. He kind of looks like Usyk. He looks like that boxer Usyk from Ukraine, with this crazy hairstyle that he has, and a beard, which that's like a Cossack style of hair. But yeah, this is the images of him, Sviatoslav the Brave, right? One of my favorite uh, princes of Russia. Okay, he's also known for what? Destroying the Khazarian Empire. Okay, destroying the Khazarian Empire. He took vengeance against Amlek. So it says here, Olga abdicated in favor of Sviatoslav I, the Brave, and retired to Kiev to spend the rest of her life in domestic duty. Sviatoslav first quickly began a course of military campaigns even greater than those of Oleg and Igor to expand his territory and control trade routes. Okay, he conquered Khazaria, which had long been a rival power, and the Volga Bulgars, the Alans, and the Danube or the Danube Bulgars, until he had more than tripled his kingdom in size. So he was the one that expanded the Russian Empire. Okay, and after Sviatoslav the Brave, you have Yarapok, Oleg, and Vladimir. Okay, Yarapok the First took power. Right, didn't last long. They pretty much killed each other, and Vladimir emerged victorious. He was the younger brother, or let me say the youngest son of Sviatoslav the Brave. And I'm gonna show you what Vladimir looks like. Okay, this is how we know that Sviatoslav was a so-called black man. You're gonna look at Vladimir the Great and how he looks. Okay. Oh, this is one right here. This is Vladimir the Great. This is Vladimir the Great, son of Sviatoslav the Brave, right? So I wanted to ask you, brothers and sisters, do you think that Sviatoslav is a so-called white man, right? Was he pale, or was he a Jake? Did he have dark skin? Okay. This is another picture of Vladimir the Great, and they have this all over Russia, all over Russia. Okay, all over Russia. You literally have Russians, Ukrainians that bow down to images like this. Okay, because they believe these men to be their forefathers, which is true for a lot of them. Elder Apostahar mentioned that you have a lot of Jakes in Eastern Europe, and I agree. If you're into martial arts, okay, if you're into literature, if you're into any of those topics, those subjects, you'll know that Eastern Europe is known, all right, for those things. Okay. Now these are this is Vladimir and his two sons. I think this is Boris and Gleb. They ended their, being assassinated or whatever. Okay. So there you go. That's Vladimir the Great. Let's look up Yaropolk the First. Not much icons of him. Can't find anything. Yeah, I don't think there are any icons that exist of him online. Okay. Okay. Let's see. We're gonna jump down. Okay, it looks like that's it. So that's pretty much all the information about Kievan Rus. Okay. Now I'm gonna go into, I have a few icons here. First, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and get this chart. What you see here is the chart of the last remaining descendants of the Rurikid dynasty. Okay. Uh, I don't know if you guys can see, but if you look closely, you'll see that this is the Rurik dynasty, right? House of Rurik, Rurik the Viking, right? The dynasty that lasted 700 to 800 years. Okay, and then this is the House of Romanov, which started by Roman, which he, right, had a daughter that was married to Ivan the Terrible, Anastasia Romanovich. Okay, so the House of Romanov were Jakes, and Russia only had uh, two dynasties to rule over Russia. Now the House of Romanov was merged with the House of Hosting Gottorp. Okay, House of Hosting Gottorp. Now we don't know who Charles Christian, I believe that's his name, is from Sweden. We don't know if he was a Jake or an Edomite, right? So it's up in the air. But what we do know is that Tsar Nicholas II, okay, his lineage goes all the way back uh, to these Russian kings, okay. And if this man is indeed a Jake, okay, which I haven't found any icons of it being a Jake, is all whitewashed, so we don't know, we don't know. But this is me speaking as a man. I believe that this dynasty were Israelites, the Holstein Gottorp, Peter the Third, Paul the First. I believe that this was an Israelite dynasty. So it's still yet to be proven. I have to find an icon of this gentleman right here, Charles Frederick, Christian Albert of House of Holstein Gottorp, and see how they really look like. So it's yet to be known. So I'm gonna show you just a few more icons. You got Ivan the Terrible, right? You know about Ivan the Terrible. Apostle Gabar talks about Ivan the Terrible, which uh, Ivan the Terrible is a Jake. I know there was something out here. They said that Vladimir the Great could be like the second coming of Ivan the Terrible. That's just all propaganda, from the West, because they're trying to make uh, Putin, which he's an Edomite, by the way. Putin is an Edomite. Okay, just because he's against Babylon doesn't mean he's an Israelite. He's an Edomite. But Putin, they're trying to make Putin seem to be the second coming of Ivan the Terrible, which is totally wrong, because Ivan the Terrible was a Jake, and he wasn't really terrible. He just lost his way. He was pretty much, all of his wives died. He had 7 wives, and all of them died for whatever the cause may be. So he became mad. Okay, he developed a hot anger. He became mad. His children were dying. It seemed like he was cursed. The Most High was plaguing him, his mind. And later on, how he died, right? He ended up killing his own son. He got in an argument in a fight with his own son, and he killed his own son. So he was pretty much effed up in the mind. The scripture says, "Give me any plague." Let me go ahead and get that. Give me any plague but the plague of the heart. This dude was bugged out, and the Most High was bugging him out. This is Sirach 25 verse 13. Give me any plague but the plague of the heart, and any wickedness but the wickedness of a woman. Okay, so he was being plagued, boy, by the Yahweh Bashim Shai, right? Heavily, you know, for you to go and kill your own son out of anger, out of terrible anger issues, and he cried heavily when he did that because his son was pretty much like the last, right? I guess you could say the last eligible, suitable heir that he had. Okay, and he killed him. He was 17 at that time. His son, 17 or 18, he killed him. So you can only imagine how you would feel as a father, ended up murdering your own son. Now I'm gonna go and show you icons of Ivan the Terrible. You can see here, this is a image of Ivan the Terrible icon found in a Russian church somewhere. This is another icon right here. This is another one of him, Ivan the Terrible. You can see it. He kind of looks like a little bit like Apostle Tar, just a little bit. Not scoffing or anything, but just this image right here, I don't know. It's like the front of his face kind of looks and resembles Apostle Tar. Now this is Ivan the Terrible, another image of him. Yeah, you can clearly see that this is Jake. Clearly see that this is Jake, Clearly see, right? So that's Ivan the Terrible. I'm going to show you Tsar Peter the Great. One of my favorite, if not my favorite, Russian Tsar emperor that has ever ruled Russia, Peter the Great. Okay, and if you know Peter the Great, he's known for pretty much yeah, what's it called it for pretty much forming Russia into an empire. Okay, the fatigue is settling in, forgive me. My mind's a little bit tired, but he's known for forming the empire of Russia. Okay, so it became a pivotal point in history because at this time, who were they fighting? They were fighting the Swedes. You can look it up, the Northern War, right? The Great Northern War from 1700 to 1721. It was a conflict in which a coalition led by the Tsardom of Russia successfully contested the supremacy of the Swedish Empire. And during this time, the Swedish Empire had the strongest military in Europe because they used a tactic, right? A famous tactic. I forgot the name of it, but what they will do is they will walk, because during this time people were using muskets. Okay, it was the early form of the muskets, and it took a long time to reload. So what he would do, the emperor at that time would have the troops just walk slowly towards gunfire, okay, and cannon fire. And these nations were missing everywhere, because at that time the technology wasn't accurate, right? It wasn't as accurate. That's how it's always, that's how it's always gonna be. When you invent something, it's not as strong, not as accurate, and over time they improve. Okay, they improve the technology. So when people were shooting, they were missing everywhere. Okay, and then when they got close, when the opposition army was reloading, they just took out their muskets and opened fire at almost point blank range and hit all their targets. So that's how they were able to wipe out thousands of armies at a time. Okay, another one popular battle was the Swedish Empire. I forgot the location, but they had 4,000 to 5,000 troops, and the opposition had 30,000, and they only lost 400 men. They won the battle. Okay, so that's how effective this military strategy was, and he was able to overcome that. And once he conquered Sweden, he ended up taking St. Petersburg, which was belonged to Sweden. He took that as a pretty much like a prize and annexed it into the Russian Empire, and that became like the literature and uh, art capital of Russia. That's where you have a lot of the poems, a lot of the histories, the documents, and everything. They locate them and put them in St. Petersburg. Okay, so there you go. Tsar Peter the Great. Clear to see that he's a Jake, not an Edomite, right? You can clearly see that he's a Jake, and this is how you look. And he was 6'8", 6'8", so-called black man ruling Russia. Ivan the Terrible, you know. And also he's known for conquering Siberia. So I'm not gonna go ahead and make this lesson short, lesson long. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it there. Again, I just wanted to add, more information about the history of Russia, right? I wasn't gonna bring out many scriptures in this because it was mainly me going over an article and mentioning scriptures here and there, right? But just trying to add more fuel to the fire of the history of Russia. It's a vast history, man. And I'm trying to encourage brothers to really get into the history of these other countries, because the only thing that most of the brothers know is the Moorish Empire of Spain, or Constantinople, Byzantine Empire. You got to get into these different histories and kingdoms of all these different nations. Jake ruled Russia, yes. You had Israelites that preferred the cold weather and were ruling Russia. That was happening, okay, during that time, right? Okay, so our history is very, very, very vast, and when the Lord brings us back together, it's going to be a beautiful thing. Let me go ahead and end it off with this one scripture right here. uh, yep, Deuteronomy 7 verse 8. Actually, let me get Deuteronomy 4. It says here, right, Deuteronomy 4. Actually, let me go ahead and get Deuteronomy 7. Go to verse 6. It says here, for thou art an holy people, unto the Lord thy power, and the Lord thy power has chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this out is because, us as a nation of Israel, not only are we special, right? Not only as we the sons of God, the sons of Israel, we also have I guess you could say, a special ability. It's to what? Govern and rule. Okay, we are known for being the salt of the earth, for setting up all these different dynasties in Europe, all these different mythologies, these stories, these fables. It all comes back from Jacob. The scripture says Jacob is the former of all things. Is that not written? Everything goes back to Jacob. This is Jeremiah 10 verse 16. It says the portion of Jacob is not like them, for he is the former of all things. And who is them? The other nations. The portion of Israel is very special. Remember, the Lord said that we are a chosen people, a special people. And Yasharallah is the rod of his inheritance. Okay? The Lord of hosts is his name. Okay? And we are the only nation called by the name, right? By Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, the only nation. You got to take great confidence, right, in that. You see a lot of brothers having that woe is me spirit. Look, you're an Israelite, that alone should have your head up high, because ultimately you're a walking descendant right? A walking, living, bloodline descendant of the greatest people on earth. Okay, the greatest people on earth that set up all these different kingdoms throughout the world. You got to take great pleasure and confidence in that. Right. So let's go back to Deuteronomy 7th chapter. It says, verse 7: the Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you, okay, because you were more in number than any people, for you were the fewest of all people, but because the Lord loved you, and because you would keep the oath which he has sworn unto your fathers, right, has the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen, right, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Okay, and that deliverance is going to happen again. Okay, the Lord is going to bring us out of the land of the north and from all the countries where we were scattered. That's Jeremiah the 16th, the 13th chapter, verse, right? 16th chapter, 13th verse. So from there, let's go to damn, I had a scripture in my mind, but I forgot it. Okay, for some reason the Spirit wants me to bring this out. Job, the 8th chapter. Yep, this is Job 8 verse 8. It says, for I inquire, I pray thee of the former age, prepare thyself to the search of their fathers. Right? Prepare. And how you prepare yourself, you study, right? You study and you put the work in. Okay? A workman needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Although history is not the truth, history is a part of the truth. It's not the scriptures for say, right, verbatim, but it's a part of the truth, because in order to understand the mysteries, you have to understand the history. Okay, so Lord willing, this lesson was edifying unto the elect. I just want to go into beloved Elder Apostle Har, his video. He was watching a documentary of Russia, and I was like, oh yeah, Elder Apostle Har is getting to the history of Russia. It's a very beautiful history, man. Vastly history, and we ruled, Russia for a long time. We ruled Russia for a long time. Brothers keep hyping and harping about the Moors falling in 1492. Look, the Moors were just Jakes who followed Islam. Just because the Moors fell doesn't mean all Israel fell, right? Brothers have to understand that the Moors were just Israelites that followed Islam. They were not, they didn't represent all, the whole nation of Israel. Okay, they didn't represent the whole nation of Israel. So you had Israelites that were following Christianity that did not label themselves as Moors. Moors was a name given to who? Jakes who were following Islam. That was a special name for the title. They were called Moors. You even had Israelites that were keeping the law, statutes, commandments, that lived side by side with the Moors. They were called what? The Sephardic Jews. Okay? And they were keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. And they were also expelled from Spain and Portugal in 1492 along with the Moors. So the Moors are not the only Israelites out there. I wish brothers would actually get into the history and just brush up on it, because this truth is very vast, and this history is very vast as well, and it will do you good to know what has happened in these different countries, because you're pretty much traveling, and you're going back in time and knowing the dispersions of Jake and where Jake ruled. So when somebody comes from these different regions, you already know a little bit about the culture and the history, right? So I'm going to go ahead and leave it out there. Until next time, Shalom.